What if what you're missing isn't hidden? What if the very key to your transformation has always been right here, resting inside you, too close to be noticed, too simple to be respected? We are trained to overlook the obvious, conditioned to believe that life must be complicated to be valuable, that truth must sound revolutionary to be real. But the deepest truths don't shout. They wait, quietly. And one of them is this: you don't manifest what you do, you manifest what you are. Not what you wish for, not what you obsess about, not what you repeat out loud every morning with tension in your chest. Reality doesn't answer repetition. It mirrors identity. Maybe you've spent months, years, trying to make things happen. You've read every book, you've watched every teacher, you've journaled, affirmed, visualized, and meditated until your desires feel more like burdens than blessings. And still, you feel the gap. You feel that invisible wall that separates what you want from what actually arrives. But here's the truth. That wall isn't outside. It's a vibration within, and it's built not by ignorance, but by subtle misalignment. You're doing everything right, but from the wrong place. From effort, not embodiment. From wanting, not from being. Neville Goddard said it clearly, again and again: assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, but the mind wants steps, not silence. The ego wants effort, not ease. So we search for techniques, rituals, strategies, while the one thing that truly shifts reality remains untouched: our state of consciousness. Because reality is not built by action, it's built by presence. You don't need to do more. You need to be different. Not in personality, but in identity. Not in behavior, but in belief. The world doesn't respond to your desire. It responds to your self-concept. You see, the human brain is trained to discard what feels too familiar. It filters out what doesn't excite it, what doesn't feel novel. That's why you hear Neville's words and nod but don't live them. That's why you understand the law intellectually, but still doubt when the bank account dips, when the phone stays silent, when the mirror shows you the same version again. The truth isn't missing. It's invisible in its obviousness. And until you learn to respect the simplicity of being, you'll keep chasing more ways to do. Dr. Joe Dispenza puts it into neuroscience. Your personality creates your personal reality. When you remain the same person, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, waking up into the same mental script, your future cannot change. Your brain literally filters the world to reflect your identity back to you. It's not that the universe is against you, it's that it's obedient to your inner state. And unless that state changes, nothing else can. This is why no amount of trying works. Because trying is a declaration that you are not it yet. Reality is a mirror, a perfect emotionless mirror, and you can't smile at it hoping it smiles first. You can't force it to reflect something you haven't yet chosen to embody. You have to smile first. You have to feel first. You have to become first. And that shift, that sacred shift from seeking to remembering, from doing to being, from hoping to knowing, is what this entire message is about. So I ask you now, gently, directly, if you already are what you seek, why are you still acting like someone becoming it? Why are you still waiting for confirmation, for evidence, for signs? The shift happens the moment you stop acting like the old self, hoping for change, and start living as the version who no longer needs to ask, because it is done, because it is you, because it always was. Now, breathe. Feel your chest rise and fall. Feel the space inside you expand without needing to add anything. This is the doorway, this stillness, this truth, this identity. You don't have to search for the light. You are the light, and the world has only ever been responding to how brightly you're willing to shine. You manifest what you are. You've been taught to want, conditioned to make lists, cast wishes, whisper dreams into the universe like fragile prayers. But what if I told you that every desire, no matter how sincere, is powerless until it becomes identity? The mind says, I want, but the universe listens to what you are. The deeper current of your being, not the surface of your thoughts, is what molds the shape of your world. There is a moment in everyone's spiritual journey where they realize this uncomfortable truth. The self who desires is not the self who receives, because the one who desires is lacking. The one who desires is waiting. And the universe, neutral, responsive, precise, reflects not your desire but your embodiment. Neville Goddard did not teach you to chase results. He taught you to assume states, to become the thing you've longed for. And that shift, from longing to being, from wishing to assuming, is not made through effort. It is made through feeling. Pause here. Let this echo. If your body still carries the energy of, "I hope it happens," then you're not living in the state of, "It is already done." Because hope has tension. Being has stillness. You don't manifest through craving, you manifest through calibration. When your nervous system no longer reacts with excitement or anxiety to the vision, it means it has become real, internally. And that's the only place it matters. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. James Clear, speaking not as a mystic, but as a behavioral scientist, says it this way: identity-based behavior creates lasting transformation. You don't try to be someone new. You act from the truth that you already are. You don't go to the gym to get fit. You become someone who identifies as healthy. You don't meditate to become spiritual. You remember that you already are, and you return to it. It's the same principle Neville taught beneath different language. Reality follows being. So I invite you to reflect, quietly, honestly. Who are you being? Not what are you doing? Not what are you chasing? Who are you being in silence when no one is watching? Is your posture still shaped by lack? Is your voice still carrying the tone of doubt? Is your breath still rushing, trying to catch up to a life you think is outside of you? Or have you become the one who already lives the reality you imagined? Take a moment to meet yourself on paper. Write down who you believe you are, right now. Not your desires, not your goals, but the silent self-image operating beneath your actions. Then write down the version of you who already has everything you seek, and observe the difference. One may speak from fear, the other from fullness. One waits, the other allows. That space between the two, that is the field of transformation. That is the doorway between timelines. And it does not open through effort. It opens through remembrance. Think of a thermostat. It doesn't chase temperature. It doesn't beg for heat. It simply holds a frequency, and the environment shifts to match it. Your consciousness works the same way. When you maintain the vibration of your desired self, not forcefully but naturally, you stop seeking and start magnetizing. You stop living like someone climbing a mountain and start living like the mountain itself, stable, certain, already home. This is the forgotten law. This is the secret that was never hidden, only overlooked. Not because it's complicated, but because it's clear. Not because it's mysterious, but because it's ordinary. And when you live it, when you no longer need to try to become and you begin to see, life doesn't change because you worked harder. Life changes because you remembered who you are and chose to stay there. There is a subtle arrogance hidden in the act of trying. It disguises itself as ambition, as discipline, as devotion. But underneath it, there is fear. A fear that if you stop trying, everything will collapse. A fear that if you surrender, nothing will happen. But what if that fear is the very thing keeping your new reality at a distance? To try to change your reality is to say, what is wrong, and I must fight it. But Neville never taught resistance. He taught selection. Creation is finished, he said. Everything you could ever desire already exists. Now, not in some distant timeline, not behind layers of worthiness tests, but here. The future isn't created, it's chosen, and the self who chooses it isn't the one who begs for change. It's the one who aligns. Trying to force the universe to respond is like yelling at a mirror. You can scream, plead, command, but the reflection only changes when you do. You're not here to make things happen. You're here to remember what already is and allow it to express itself through you. But the ego resists this. It wants to be the cause. It wants to control, to manipulate, to be the hero of the story. And so, without noticing, you begin to chase outcomes instead of embodying states. You become obsessed with timing instead of trusting alignment. The nervous system plays along. When your ego believes it must act to deserve, to fix, to achieve, your body enters a state of subtle survival. Cortisol rises, breath tightens, your energy field contracts. And what happens next? You begin to feel blocked. Not because the universe is denying you, but because you've stepped out of the identity of the one who receives. You're no longer being, you're proving. And proving is the vibration of lack. The question is not how do I get it? The question is what does it feel like to already be it? This is the shift. from strategy to state, from manipulation to magnetism, from needing to influence life to becoming the version for whom this life is natural. It's not about abandoning action, it's about transforming the energy behind it. You can still move, still build, still create, but not to compensate for who you're not. Only as an expression of who you already are. This is not passivity. This is vibrational mastery. It's not laziness, it's alignment. Trying is born from fear. Being is born from faith. And when you begin to live from the end, without needing proof, without needing speed, without needing validation, you enter a different frequency, one where the world no longer tests you, it reflects you. Imagine yourself standing in front of a mirror, covered in dust. You take a cloth and frantically start scrubbing the glass, hoping to see something different. But the reflection doesn't change, not because the mirror is broken, but because you're trying to clean the effect, not the cause. The cause is you. And when you step back, breathe and shift your posture, the mirror reveals a new image, not because you forced it, because you allowed it. So the next time you catch yourself trying to make things happen, pause, not to judge, but to remember. Creation is not waiting to be built, it's waiting to be seen. And it sees you clearly, faithfully, without distortion, only when you see yourself as the one who no longer needs to try. Because you already are, because it already is. Because this is how the universe responds, and not to effort but to essence. There's a reason why change feels so difficult, even when it's exactly what you've asked for, even when the vision is clear, even when the affirmations are spoken with devotion. Deep inside, something resists, something clings, and it's not because you're broken or weak or confused, it's because the old self, the emotional signature of who you've been, doesn't want to die. We speak of transformation as if it's only about creating the new, but the truth is more intimate. You are grieving the familiar, the suffering you've known, the identity you've carried, the emotions you've repeated for years. Even if they hurt, they've been yours. Even if they hold you back, they've held you together. And letting go of them so feels like losing yourself. This is emotional inertia. The body, accustomed to the chemistry of the past, pulls you back into states that match who you used to be, because they feel safe. Not joyful, not expansive, but safe. And the nervous system is loyal to safety, even if that safety means staying small. You can know the truth in your mind, but if your body still vibrates with old fear, doubt, or scarcity, your reality won't shift. Because it's not the mind that manifests, it's the state. Neuroscience explains this in terms of habit loops and emotional addiction. Your brain wires itself around repeated emotional experiences. If you've lived most of your life feeling not enough, unseen, or unworthy, those feelings become familiar grooves in your neural pathways. Change then isn't just about thinking differently, it's about feeling what you've never allowed yourself to feel. Peace, ease, worthiness, without justification. But here's the turning point. True change will often feel wrong before it feels right. Because your nervous system interprets unfamiliar joy as danger, you might visualize abundance and suddenly feel anxious. You might affirm love and feel empty, not because you're failing, but because your system is detoxing from the old self. You're not going backward. You're passing through withdrawal. So instead of running from discomfort, stay. Stay with the silence. Stay with the stillness that arises when you stop feeding the emotions that once defined you. Don't rush to replace them. Don't label them as blocks. Let them rise. Let them burn. Let them dissolve in the light of your awareness. You are not the pain. You are the space the pain moves through. Imagine someone quitting sugar after a lifetime of sweetness. The first days are not peaceful. They are loud, agitated, restless. The body screams for what it's used to, not because it needs it, but because it's addicted to it. But with time, the cravings pass, the taste buds reset, and something quiet returns. Clarity, balance, health. Your emotional body works the same way. The chaos is not a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're healing. Let this bring you compassion. Let this bring you softness. If you've been feeling off while doing your inner work, it's not because you're off path. It's because the path is asking you to release an identity that can no longer enter the life you've asked for. And that release isn't just mental. It's cellular, it's spiritual, it's sacred. So be gentle with yourself as you become new, not because the old was bad, but because it's complete. And the new you, the one you've dreamed, imagined, called forth, is already waiting, not in the distance, but in the stillness beneath the storm, in the breath after the sob, in the silence that only arrives when the old self stops speaking, and the truth begins. There's a quiet lie that echoes through modern life, a belief so ingrained it feels like common sense, that the more you do, the more you'll receive. That manifestation is a matter of effort, that if you aren't seeing results, it must be because you haven't done enough. So you double your effort. You read more, meditate harder, visualize longer, and yet still nothing moves. Or worse, it all begins to feel heavier, tighter, more distant, because the error isn't in what you're doing. It's in the belief that doing creates being. This is not about laziness, this is about truth. And the truth is this: when your actions come from lack, they multiply lack. Not because the universe is cruel, but because it's exact. It reflects your state, not your strategy. You can't fool the mirror. You can't trick vibration. You can't override your inner world by stacking more tasks on top of misalignment. We live in a culture addicted to action. It praises the hustler, rewards the busy, idolizes the burned-out achiever. And slowly, without even realizing it, you internalize the message: if I'm not doing something, I'm falling behind. But what if stillness is not stagnation? What if presence is more powerful than movement? What if you don't need to do more, but simply stop doing what's driven by fear? Feel the paradox. The more you chase your future, the more you affirm it's not here. The more you try to force results, the more you vibrate with distrust. It's like shaking a vending machine, hoping the snack will drop. But until you enter the correct code, the frequency, the identity, nothing changes. Not because the machine is broken, but because you haven't yet aligned. Spiritual manifestation is not a reward for your actions, it's a mirror of your permission. When you allow yourself to receive, not just mentally, but emotionally, bodily, vibrationally, the universe responds. And that kind of allowing doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being different. It comes from no longer asking, what else can I do? And starting to ask, what am I doing that denies who I already am? There is a quiet courage in stopping, in identifying the movements you've made just to silence your fear, the routines driven by anxiety, the rituals performed out of habit, not presence, the endless striving that masks a deeper truth, that you're already worthy, that you've already become it, that the seed has already been planted, and now it simply needs space to grow. Stillness is not passive, it is fertile. And in that stillness, you remember, manifestation doesn't happen through pushing, it happens through embodying, not because you did more, but because you finally stopped trying to earn what was already yours. So today, instead of adding another technique, subtract. Remove the action that stems from doubt, replace it with a breath, a moment, a return to presence. You are not falling behind. You are being called back to simplicity, back to alignment, back to the version of you who no longer needs to prove, perform, or push, because the truth is obvious. And until it feels safe to live without forcing, you won't feel safe to receive. You've studied the teachings, you know the words. You can quote Neville Goddard with ease, repeat Dispenza's principles, and explain the subconscious mind to your friends as if it were a map you've walked 100 times. And yet, something still hasn't shifted. Not fully, not deeply. You can feel the truth in your mind, but your reality still echoes the old patterns. Why? Because knowing is not being, and insight is not integration. There is a quiet trap many fall into, the illusion that understanding something intellectually means they've lived it. But there is a chasm between what the mind agrees with and what the body has accepted as real. You can speak the language of transformation while still vibrating with the emotions of limitation. You can read every book on abundance and still feel unworthy when you look at your bank account, not because you're not ready, but because your transformation has remained conceptual. This is not a failure. It's an invitation to step beyond the comfort of learning and into the sacred discomfort of becoming, because true embodiment asks more than comprehension. It asks for repetition. It asks for presence. It asks you to sit with a single truth until your nervous system melts into it, until the idea is no longer new, but natural, until you are no longer trying to believe, but living as if you never doubted. There is a hidden exhaustion in the spiritual seeker's path, this endless hunger for more techniques, more insights, more information. But what if you don't need more? What if all you need is to choose one truth and live it so deeply that your environment has no choice but to adapt? The overconsumption of wisdom creates spiritual paralysis. You become addicted to the high of realization, but resistant to the silence of application. And the irony is painful. The more you know, the less you move, because every new insight offers the illusion that you are progressing, when in truth, your inner world remains untouched. You are still the same self, wearing different words. Neville never said memorize these teachings. He said live from the end. That means feel the state, become the assumption. Let the principle leave the page and enter your bones. Transformation doesn't happen in a notebook. It happens in how you rise in the morning, how you breathe in front of fear, how you walk into a room already knowing you belong. It happens in silence. It happens in simplicity. It happens when the mind lets go of needing more, and the body begins to remember what it already knew. So let today be the moment you stop collecting and start creating. Choose one law, just one, and let it govern your vibration until it becomes your default. Until the old thoughts feel foreign, until the old self has no place to land. This is how you bake the bread. Not by reading the recipe again and again, but by trusting the process, kneading the dough, waiting in the stillness, and letting the heat do its work. And when you taste it, when your life begins to mirror the state you've finally chosen, you'll know. Not because you understood, but because you became. You may have the clearest intentions, a vision so vivid it brings tears to your eyes. You may speak affirmations with faith, visualize with devotion, write your goals under moonlight or first thing at dawn, and still, nothing moves. The door doesn't open, the manifestation stalls, and you begin to wonder, what am I missing? Often what you're missing isn't clarity of desire, it's compatibility of identity. There is a subtle but powerful conflict that lives beneath many manifestation blocks. Your intention says one thing, but your self-concept says another. You want abundance, but still identify as someone who struggles. You want love, but carry the identity of the one who's hard to love. You want freedom, but see yourself as someone who must work endlessly to deserve rest. And no matter how beautiful your vision is, your subconscious will reject anything that contradicts the self-image you haven't yet updated. The subconscious isn't punishing you, it's protecting you. It's trying to preserve the version of you that it believes is safe, even if that version lives in limitation. This is what psychologists call self-verification theory. Human beings at a deep unconscious level seek confirmation of who they believe they are, even if that belief is negative, because familiarity feels like truth, and truth, even painful truth, feels safer than the unknown. Neville said, change your concept of self, and you will automatically change the world you live in. Not change your habits, not change your thoughts, not even change your emotions, but change your self-concept, because once identity shifts, action becomes effortless. You're no longer trying to be wealthy, you are being wealth. You're no longer calling in love, you are embodying love. And from that place, manifestation is no longer a request, it is a reflection. But here is where the work becomes sacred. Most people are deeply loyal to an identity that was shaped by old wounds. Your idea of who you are is often based on what hurt you, what limited you, what you were taught to fear or feel ashamed of. And so, stepping into a new identity doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it feels unsafe. It's like uploading new software on hardware that still believes it's broken. You must meet this moment with grace, because healing isn't just about rewriting beliefs, it's about feeling what you've never felt safe enough to feel. It's about letting the new identity enter your body, not just your imagination, not as fantasy, but as home. So ask yourself, not what do I want, but who do I need to become for that desire to feel ordinary, not exciting, ordinary. Because when something feels ordinary, it means your nervous system has accepted it. It no longer feels like a dream. It feels like your life. And when that happens, the outer world follows without resistance, because it is no longer trying to match a wish. It's simply reflecting who you've already become. The conflict ends when the inner truth aligns with the outer vision, when you stop being loyal to the self who survived and begin to live as the one who thrives. Not one day, not someday, but now. Because this is the truth. You're not waiting to become. You're allowing what already lives inside you to finally take its place on the surface. There's a quiet voice inside that asks, if it's working, where's the proof? But the need for evidence before belief is the very vibration that delays it. Neville said, assumption creates fact, not the reverse. Reality reflects identity, not desire, not effort, not logic. When you wait to believe until something appears, you're not manifesting, you're doubting. The ego wants signs because it fears surrender, but creation doesn't respond to inspection. It responds to embodiment. If you constantly look for confirmation, you're affirming its absence. You say you are abundant, but watch the bank account for proof. You say you are loved, but test others for reassurance. That's not faith. That's fear in disguise. The brain filters reality through what you emotionally expect. If you expect lack, you'll miss the abundance already arriving. Faith isn't pretending. It's living as if it's already done. The flower blooms not because you stare at the seed, but because you water it in silence. Let go of the need to see before you believe. Walk as the version of you who no longer needs signs. And in that quiet certainty, reality bends, not to convince you, but to meet you where you already are. Faith is not about hoping. It's not soft optimism wrapped in silence. Faith is alignment between what you imagine, what you feel, and who you are. It's not a concept, it's a state. And that state becomes your signal. It informs the field around you. It shapes what returns to you. Joe Dispenza speaks of coherence, the moment your brain and heart stop sending mixed signals. That moment when your intention and your identity stop contradicting each other, and in that moment time dissolves, doubt fades, distance disappears, not because you tried harder, but because you finally became one with what you desired. Most people scatter their faith. They want one thing but prepare for another. They affirm abundance, then emotionally prepare for delay. This fragmentation is what weakens the current. It's not that your manifestation isn't working, it's that the signal keeps changing. Faith is singular. It holds one vibration and stays there, like tuning into one radio station without flipping the dial every few minutes. When the static ends, clarity begins. And that clarity is not loud, it's steady. Faith works not because you insist. It works because you no longer need to. You are no longer rehearsing. You are remembering. You are no longer hoping. You are living it. Your world is not a separate thing. It is your consciousness made visible. Neville said, your world is yourself pushed out. Not a metaphor, a mirror. Life reflects what you believe about yourself, about others, about what you're allowed to receive. Not what you say, but what you assume when the room is silent. This is the law most people know intellectually, but forget emotionally. They ask, why is this happening to me? When the deeper question is, what part of me is this reflecting? Not to assign blame, but to reclaim authorship. Psychology calls it projection. Spirit calls it resonance. Either way, the principle is the same. You do not see the world as it is. You see it as you are. That's why healing your assumptions is not just personal, it's transformational. Because when you shift within, the world must respond. Not eventually, immediately. The mirror never lags. And when something triggers you, when something offends, blocks, or frightens, it's not just a problem, it's a portal. It shows you where an outdated assumption is still shaping your experience, and the moment you update it, the reflection changes, not because the world improved, but because you remembered it was never separate. It was always showing you, you. Live from the end, not toward it. Neville's most direct teaching is also the most ignored. Live from the end, not as someone waiting, but as someone who already is. Most imagine their desire from afar, but true manifestation begins when it feels familiar, not exciting. The end is not a fantasy. It's your new emotional home. When your nervous system no longer reacts with hope or doubt, but with calm certainty, you've aligned. The miraculous becomes ordinary, the extraordinary, expected. And life, like a faithful mirror, begins to reflect not your striving, but your being. Because what you live from, you live into. You are already the cause. You are not waiting for reality to change. You are the cause of it. Neville said it. Creation is finished. The world responds not to effort, but to embodiment. When you live as the version who already has, life mirrors that identity without resistance. Dr. Joe Dispenza echoes this. Change your state, and perception rewires. You don't need more proof or steps. You need to accept that it's already done. The shift happens when you stop searching and start being. What feels natural becomes visible, because what you fully embody stops being a wish and becomes the world.